AITA for refusing to let my younger brother live with me after he got kicked out of college. I, 26M, have been living on my own for about 5 years now. I work as a software developer and have a stable apartment in a mid-sized city. My younger brother, Jake, 21M, has always been the kind of person who struggles to take responsibility for anything. Growing up, my parents often shielded him from consequences, which I think is why he has a really hard time dealing with setbacks now. Jake recently got kicked out of college for failing multiple classes and accumulating massive debt with no sign of changing his habits. I learned about this over the phone when he called me crying, asking if he could stay with me until he gets his life together. At first, I felt bad. He is my brother, and I care about him. But as I thought about it, I realized that letting him move in would be a huge disruption to my life and might even enable the behavior that caused this situation. I tried to explain this to him gently. I told him that my apartment is small, I work long hours, and I've built a routine that keeps me productive and financially stable. I also reminded him that living with someone who enables him could make it harder for him to develop the independence he needs. He got angry and said I was being selfish, that families should help each other, and that I didn't understand how stressful and overwhelming his situation is. I offered alternatives instead. I told him I could help him find a cheaper apartment or temporary housing, assist with job applications, or even help him find local programs that help young adults in crisis. I even offered to cover a small portion of his rent for a couple of months if he managed to find a place on his own. He rejected all of this, insisting that I just didn't care enough about him. After that conversation, our parents got involved. My mom called me upset and asked why I wasn't being there for my brother. She reminded me that I've always had an easier time and that I should help him because he's family. I tried to explain my side again, emphasizing that enabling him to live here would likely make his problems worse. My dad said I was being cold and unreasonable. A few days later, Jake showed up at my apartment unannounced. He brought a duffel bag, assuming I would let him stay. I told him he couldn't, and he accused me of betraying him and stormed out. I blocked his number for a few hours just to cool down because he was sending me frantic and sometimes threatening texts. My parents called me angry, saying that my actions were heartless and destroying our family relationships. Since then, Jake has been staying with various friends and acquaintances, none of whom seem very reliable. My parents keep pressuring me to let him move in, and I'm feeling torn. I genuinely don't want to hurt my brother, but I also know that allowing him to move in without him taking real steps to change will only make the situation worse. My friends are split. Some say I'm doing the right thing by setting boundaries and encouraging responsibility. Others say I should help my brother because family comes first. I understand both sides, but I keep thinking about how enabling him could affect my life and finances and possibly set back his ability to grow into a responsible adult. I'm posting here because I feel stuck. I want to support my brother, but I also don't want to sacrifice my own stability or give in to behavior that could make things worse for him in the long run. My parents think I'm overreacting and not being compassionate, and Jake is furious. I'm worried I'm being selfish, but I also think boundaries are necessary for both of us. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after getting kicked out of college. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So, this is going to be a long one, and I need to give some context. I, 24F, have a younger sister, Emily, 21F, who I was extremely close to growing up. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and I basically took on a big sister, almost parental role for her. I was there for everything, from helping her with homework to making sure she navigated high school without too many issues. Emily was always very emotional and sometimes a little dramatic, but I loved her and still do. Now, Emily has been dating her fiancé, Matt, 26M, for about 3 years. When she first introduced him, I was cautiously optimistic. I've had a bad gut instinct about people before, and I thought it was worth giving him a chance. In the beginning, he seemed charming and funny. But as time went on, several things about him started to bother me. Matt is extremely controlling in subtle ways. He criticizes everything about Emily, from what she wears to how she spends her free time. When I try to talk to her about it, she brushes it off as him just being protective or he cares too much. He also makes her feel guilty for spending time with anyone else, including me, which I found alarming. I try to maintain our relationship, but it's hard when every visit involves subtle jabs from him about me, taking her away, or interfering in their relationship. The straw that broke the camel's back happened last month. Emily and Matt invited me to a small get-together at their place. I brought a homemade dessert and thought it would be a nice gesture. From the moment I walked in, Matt was in a weird mood. He immediately started criticizing how I looked and loudly commented on how I wasn't as put together as Emily. I brushed it off, thinking maybe he was joking, but then he made comments about how I don't have my life together because I'm still in school. I tried to ignore it and focus on Emily, but things escalated. Matt grabbed Emily's phone without asking to check something and started going through her messages in front of me. He even asked me to leave so he and Emily could talk privately. I was shocked and offended. Emily told me later that Matt was just making sure she wasn't talking to anyone suspicious, which made me feel like she was defending behavior that felt abusive. I started noticing patterns when I visited them for holidays or small events. Matt would make backhanded compliments at me, try to control how Emily interacted with me, and even guilt-trip her for spending time with our parents or friends. It got to the point where I dreaded seeing him, and I began limiting contact. Emily always got upset with me for creating distance, but wouldn't acknowledge the ways he treated me. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. Emily called me crying because Matt had been pressuring her to elope early, which she didn't want. She said she felt trapped and didn't know what to do. I told her I could support her no matter what, but I refused to be around Matt until she either set boundaries or took some time to reflect on their relationship. She got defensive and said I was choosing him over her. Then came the wedding invite. Emily sent a very formal invitation and seemed really excited. I've spent the last week agonizing over whether to go. On one hand, I love my sister and have been dreaming about this day with her. On the other hand, I do not feel safe or comfortable being around Matt, and I don't think my presence would be enjoyable for anyone, including Emily. I told Emily that I could not attend unless Matt agreed to behave respectfully toward me and acknowledge the ways he had treated me poorly. I also told her that if she chose to ignore this, I would support her emotionally but not physically be present at the wedding. Emily reacted explosively. She accused me of being controlling, selfish, and trying to ruin her wedding. She said that refusing to attend would make her feel betrayed and that I was overreacting. Our parents are also upset with me because they think I'm overthinking things and that this is just wedding stress. I've tried explaining that my feelings aren't about ruining her day. They're about self-respect and not tolerating mistreatment. I also tried saying I could attend the reception only or be part of smaller events where Matt isn't involved, but Emily refused. She said that if I wasn't there for the ceremony, I wasn't welcome at any part of the wedding. Now I feel stuck. I love Emily, and I want her to have a happy wedding, but I also can't ignore how Matt treats me. I've even considered attending and just staying away from him, but the thought of being in the same room with him for hours is exhausting and anxiety-inducing. I guess my question is, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I feel like I'm being reasonable by not subjecting myself to his toxic behavior, but Emily and my family think I'm overreacting and being dramatic. I just don't know what to do. I don't want to damage my relationship with Emily, but I also can't pretend that Matt's behavior is okay. AITA for refusing to let my sister's new boyfriend stay at our house, even though he's family now. So this is going to be a long one because the situation is complicated. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 24F, who's always been very free-spirited. She moves fast in life, and honestly, I've had to learn to just go with it. We live in the same city, but not together. I'm more on the responsible, planner side, whereas she tends to act first and think later. This is important context because it plays into the whole mess. A few months ago, Emma started dating this guy, Ryan, 26M. From the start, I didn't have a great vibe from him. He seemed a little too casual about everything, kind of loud and obnoxious, but my sister was smitten, and I tried to stay neutral. I don't usually make snap judgments about people, so I kept my opinion mostly to myself. Fast forward to last week. Emma and Ryan called me out of the blue. She says, "Hey, can Ryan stay with you for a few days? He's between apartments, and we'd really appreciate it. You're practically family now." I was immediately taken aback. I've never even met him at my apartment. I've only seen him at her place. And I definitely didn't consider him family. I hesitated and asked why he couldn't stay at her place. And she said her apartment is being fumigated for some insect issue, so she needed to be out anyway, and Ryan had nowhere else. I told her I wasn't comfortable having him stay at my place. I explained that I barely know him, I don't live with anyone normally, and I like my routines. I added that if he wanted to stay with her, maybe they could ask another friend or look into a short-term rental. I thought that would be the end of it. Instead, things blew up. Emma called me crying later that day. She said I was being ridiculous and selfish, and that since I was the older sibling, I should be more accommodating. She said Ryan is practically family now, and that refusing him is hurting him and me. She then sent me a long text saying that family helps each other, and I was being cold. The next day, Ryan texted me directly. I didn't respond because I didn't want to escalate, but his message was basically, "I hope we're not enemies just because your sister asked me to stay. I'd never impose if you said no." I forwarded it to Emma, saying I wasn't responding and that she needed to figure this out. She got more upset, accusing me of being dramatic and unkind, and that I was letting her down. Our parents got involved too, but not in the way I expected. I called them for advice, explaining the situation, and they were kind of on Emma's side. They said, "He is practically family, and you could just make a little sacrifice." I argued that I didn't even know him, and it's not a sacrifice if it makes me uncomfortable in my own space. They told me I should try harder to be welcoming. Now, the situation is tense. Emma keeps texting me, asking if I've changed my mind, and Ryan keeps sending passive-aggressive messages like, "It would be nice to feel accepted by your family since we're serious now." I haven't responded. My apartment is my sanctuary, and I don't like the idea of having someone live there who I don't know. My friends are telling me I'm right, but part of me feels like I might be overreacting because I don't want to hurt my sister. I thought about compromise. Maybe I could let him crash for one night, but even that feels weird and stressful. I don't know if I'd be able to relax or sleep properly knowing someone I barely know is in my home. I also feel like the whole "he's family now" argument is manipulative. Just because someone is dating your sister doesn't make them family to me, especially when we've never shared holidays, experiences, or even casual dinners together. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to feel forced into hosting someone who is essentially a stranger. I've started avoiding her calls because every time she brings it up, I feel guilty, and it's exhausting. She's now telling friends and other family members that I'm being mean and rejecting our family, which is frustrating because I've always been the one to help out in crises before. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my place, even though she says he's family now. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house when he's visiting, even though my sister is upset with me. I, 25F, live in a small one-bedroom apartment in the city. My sister, Laura, 28F, lives about 2 hours away and has been engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, for 6 months. Laura and I have always had a bit of a complicated relationship. We grew up close, but we are very different in how we handle money, space, and social interactions. I tend to be more introverted and private, whereas Laura is more outgoing and tends to expect people to accommodate her lifestyle. Recently, Laura and Mark told me they wanted to come visit for a weekend. They said they would love to stay with me to save money on a hotel since it's expensive in my city. I immediately told them I didn't have the space to host them comfortably. My apartment is a single bedroom with a small living area and 1 bathroom. There's only 1 bed, so having 2 extra people would basically mean 1 person sleeping on the couch, and everyone sharing very close quarters. Laura responded by saying it would be fine and that I could just make it work since Mark doesn't mind sleeping on the floor or wherever. I explained again that I didn't feel comfortable with that arrangement because I need my space and I value having a clean and organized living area. I also mentioned that I work irregular hours and sometimes need quiet time in the mornings and evenings, and having 2 extra people in my apartment would be stressful. She said she understood, but then tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "I just thought you want to see us more and be helpful. You're our sister, not a stranger." I ended up offering an alternative. I could help them find a hotel nearby, or they could stay with one of our parents who live closer to them, and I could still meet them in the city during the day. Laura seemed upset, but didn't argue further at that point. A few days later, Laura sent me a text asking if they could still come and stay for just one night. She said Mark was exhausted from work and would really appreciate it. I again explained my apartment wasn't suitable for guests in that way, and that I felt stressed just thinking about it. She got defensive and said that I was selfish and inflexible, and accused me of caring more about my comfort than seeing my family. I tried to explain that it wasn't about not wanting to see her or Mark, just about my living situation. The conflict escalated when she called me, and during the conversation, she said something that really bothered me. She said, "You always put your little apartment and your stupid rules before family. Why can't you just be normal and host people sometimes?" I got upset and hung up. I felt like she wasn't respecting my boundaries or the fact that my apartment literally doesn't have the space for 2 extra adults. Now, my parents and some mutual friends are involved. My parents say I'm technically within my rights, but that I could have been more flexible for the sake of family. Friends are split. Some agree that I shouldn't have to host anyone if I'm uncomfortable, while others think I'm being cold and need to make sacrifices for family. Laura has stopped talking to me since that phone call. She sent me a long message accusing me of being a bad sister and that I ruined their weekend plans, and that Mark was really disappointed. She also implied that if I don't let them stay, she'll never visit me in the city again. I feel like I'm being unfairly vilified for simply not wanting to host people in a small space when I already feel stressed by my job and daily routine. I offered alternatives that would allow us to see each other without me losing my sense of personal space. I really do care about my sister and her fiancé, but I feel like my boundaries are being ignored and dismissed. I'm starting to wonder if I'm overreacting or if I truly have a right to say no without being labeled selfish. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also can't compromise my living space and mental well-being. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my apartment, even though she's upset with me. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé handle my dad's funeral arrangements. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. I need to figure out if I was in the wrong. This all started when my dad passed away suddenly 2 weeks ago. He was 62, and while he had some health issues, nobody expected it to happen so soon. My sister, who I'll call Emma, and I were both devastated. Our relationship has always been a bit strained because of how we grew up, but we always came together during family crises. This time, though, it feels different, and I need an outside perspective. Our dad was very particular about things. He always joked that he was the only boss in this family when it came to any decisions, even trivial ones. He loved simplicity, had very traditional tastes, and hated overcomplicating things. He didn't leave a will or any instructions for his funeral, but he did drop subtle hints over the years about wanting a small, modest service with just close family and a few friends. He wasn't religious, didn't want a lot of pomp, and was very clear that he didn't want any showy stuff. Emma, however, has a fiancé, let's call him Mark, who's very different. Mark is the kind of person who treats everything like a competition or a production. He's always been the type to insist on his taste being superior, and he tends to make decisions for Emma, which has caused tension in the past. I've never liked how much control he tries to take over our family matters, but I've mostly stayed out of it to avoid conflict. After Dad passed, Emma called me in tears and said that she and Mark had already made some plans for the funeral. I asked what she meant, and she said that Mark had contacted a luxury funeral home, booked a big casket, arranged for an elaborate floral setup, and even hired a string quartet. I immediately felt my stomach drop. This was the exact opposite of what I knew Dad wanted. I tried to calmly explain that we should do something small and modest, just like Dad would have wanted, but Emma said I was overreacting and that Mark knows what's best. I suggested we sit down and make a list of things Dad would actually appreciate, but Emma and Mark brushed it off. Mark told me that we shouldn't limit ourselves to Dad's outdated ideas, and that we need to honor him in style, not in simplicity. That rubbed me the wrong way, because this wasn't about style, it was about respecting Dad's wishes. I pointed out that even if Dad didn't leave a will, we knew enough about him to honor his preferences. Emma got defensive, saying that I was trying to control everything and that I didn't understand grief. The tension escalated quickly. I refused to sign any paperwork or make payments for the services Mark arranged, and I started contacting other funeral homes that offered simple packages. Emma accused me of trying to steal the funeral and of turning this into a fight. I said I just wanted a service that was true to Dad, not flashy or expensive. Mark started texting me passive-aggressive messages, calling me stubborn and selfish, and even suggested that I was making Dad's passing about me, which I found extremely hurtful. A few days later, Mark actually showed up at the funeral home I contacted, insisting that he meet with the director. He tried to convince them to cancel my arrangements and go with his. The staff was polite but firm, and he left fuming. I was relieved, but when I told Emma what happened, she got very upset and said I humiliated her fiancé and that our family was falling apart over this. The funeral itself ended up being the way I wanted, small, quiet, and intimate. A few of Dad's close friends came. There were simple flowers, and we shared stories and memories without anything extravagant. Emma barely spoke to me during it, and Mark sat silently in the corner, scowling. Now, a week later, the tension is unbearable. My parents' friends have privately told me they appreciated the simplicity, and a few distant relatives texted saying the service felt genuine. Emma, however, keeps sending me messages blaming me for ruining what could have been a beautiful event and insists that I'm toxic for refusing to let Mark take charge. I can't help but feel like I did the right thing, because this was about my dad, not about power struggles between Emma and me or Emma and Mark. But the guilt keeps creeping in. Did I handle this the wrong way? Was I too harsh in refusing to let Mark participate, even if he had good intentions? I've tried reaching out to Emma calmly, but she's not responding well, and Mark hasn't stopped texting. Part of me thinks that if I'd just let them have their way, we might have avoided the family drama. But another part of me knows Dad would have hated it. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé control my dad's funeral arrangements and insisting on a simple, modest service. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding after he publicly humiliated me at my engagement party. So, this is going to be long, and I'll try to explain everything as clearly as possible. I, 27F, recently got engaged to my fiancé, Alex, 29M. We've been together for 5 years, and we were super excited to finally start planning our wedding. My family has always been close, so I was looking forward to celebrating with them. My younger sister, Emma, 24F, is usually fun to be around but can be incredibly inconsiderate when she wants to be. About 2 months ago, we had an engagement party at my parents' house. It was a casual thing, just family and a few close friends. Emma brought her boyfriend, Jason, 25M, who I met only a couple of times before and didn't really know. At first, everything seemed fine, but as the night went on, things went south fast. At one point, Alex gave a little speech thanking everyone for coming and talking about how happy he was to marry me. It was sweet and heartfelt. Everyone was quiet, listening. Then Jason, completely out of nowhere, starts loudly saying stuff like, "Wow, I guess she really lucked out, huh? And hope she knows what she's getting into." He laughed and smirked, clearly trying to get attention. People were awkwardly quiet, and I was mortified. I told him to stop, and Alex looked hurt and embarrassed. It didn't end there. Later in the night, Jason grabbed the microphone during a game and made a toast where he basically roasted me in front of everyone, saying things like, "I mean, she's great, but let's be honest, she could be a total mess sometimes. And now you're stuck with her forever." People were laughing nervously, but it was obvious no one really thought it was funny. I was furious, and Alex looked like he wanted to disappear. I eventually got him to stop and left the room. I was shaking with anger, and Emma didn't really apologize. She said he was just joking and that I was being too sensitive. I felt humiliated, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I could even look at Jason the same way again. Alex was super supportive and told me he'd have my back no matter what, but I could tell he was upset too. Fast forward to wedding planning. Things were going well, and we were setting the guest list. Emma casually mentioned that she wanted to bring Jason, and I immediately said no. I told her that after what happened at the engagement party, I didn't feel comfortable having him at the wedding. Emma got really defensive, saying I was holding grudges and that she shouldn't have to pay for a joke he made months ago. I explained that it wasn't just a joke. It was a public humiliation, and I wasn't willing to put myself through that again on one of the most important days of my life. Emma didn't take it well. She started sending me texts calling me controlling, overreacting, and even saying that I was ruining her happiness. She also brought up the fact that I sometimes make mistakes too, like the time I forgot her birthday, and said I shouldn't expect perfection from everyone else. I tried to explain that this wasn't about perfection. It was about respect. She refused to see it that way. A few days later, she told our parents that I was being unreasonable and that they should intervene so Jason could attend. My parents were caught in the middle, trying to be diplomatic, but I stood my ground. I told them that I loved Emma, but this was my wedding, and I was allowed to set boundaries. Emma has now gone silent with me and hasn't spoken since our last argument. She's posting on social media about how family should support each other and holding grudges never helps, clearly about me. My fiancé keeps telling me not to worry and that he agrees with my decision, but I feel guilty that my sister is upset. Some friends of mine have told me I'm completely justified because Jason was disrespectful and that my sister is being unreasonable for expecting him to be invited. But others have said that I should forgive and forget to keep the peace. I honestly don't want to cause a family feud, but I also don't want to have someone at my wedding who has publicly embarrassed me and has shown no remorse. I feel like this is my day and my choice, but part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. So AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding after he humiliated me at my engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she treated me poorly for years. So this is going to be long, but I want to give all the details because I feel like context matters a lot here. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Anna, 28F, and we've never had a super smooth relationship. We grew up in a small town with very traditional parents, and I guess our personalities just clashed. I was always more introverted and academic, while she was outgoing, social, and often kind of manipulative. Over the years, we've had a lot of fights, but I try to maintain a civil relationship because family is important. Fast forward to now, I own a house in another city after moving for work a few years ago. It's not huge, but it's a nice 3-bedroom place with a backyard. It's my sanctuary, and I've worked very hard to get it, especially since my parents didn't help much financially when I moved out. Anna got engaged about a year ago, and when she announced it, she immediately started dropping hints about wanting to have the wedding at my house. She didn't outright ask at first, but she kept talking about how perfect it would be and how I should think about it because my house is bigger and more beautiful than anything she could afford. I told her honestly that I needed to think about it, and I explained that hosting a wedding, even a small one, would be a huge undertaking for me. She seemed disappointed, but didn't press too hard at that time. Over the next few months, she began being really passive-aggressive whenever I didn't agree with her on wedding details she thought were obvious. She would say things like, "I thought you want to help me since you're the responsible sister," or, "It's just a few days, I don't see why you're making such a big deal." Meanwhile, she has a history of expecting me to bend over backward for her, and in the past, I've let her take advantage of my kindness. For example, when we were younger, she would borrow my clothes and not return them, use my things without asking, and make me feel guilty if I said no to anything she wanted. I started noticing the same patterns creeping into this wedding situation. The real tipping point came a few weeks ago. She invited me over to discuss the wedding logistics and brought along her fiancé and a few of her friends. Within an hour of being there, she had essentially assumed that I was going to say yes to hosting and started making specific demands. She wanted the backyard decorated in a certain way, her friends to stay overnight in my rooms, and she even implied that I should pay for part of the catering. I got increasingly uncomfortable, and when I said no to some of her requests, she got visibly annoyed and started sulking, making passive-aggressive comments about how I was selfish and always thinking about myself. I tried to explain that hosting a wedding isn't just about saying yes. It's a huge responsibility, and I have a full-time job and other commitments. I even suggested alternatives, like renting a local hall or using her fiancé's parents' backyard, but she brushed everything off and said it wouldn't be the same and that it wasn't fair for me to refuse. I realized at that point that I wasn't going to win if I let her manipulate me into hosting. So, I told her firmly I could not host her wedding at my house. I explained that it's my personal space and that I wasn't comfortable with the amount of stress and responsibility that would come with it. I also reminded her of past situations where she had treated me poorly or ignored my feelings, and that I couldn't put myself in a position to be taken advantage of again. Her reaction was immediate and dramatic. She started crying and accusing me of hating her and not supporting her big day. She even said I was the reason she might have to cancel the wedding. Her fiancé and friends were shocked, and I just stayed firm because I knew giving in would make me resent her forever. Since then, our entire family has gotten involved. My parents are upset with me because they think I'm being too harsh and shouldn't make family drama over a wedding. My friends are mostly supportive, but some of them think I should just let her use the house to keep the peace. Anna has basically stopped talking to me, except for occasional passive-aggressive texts asking if I've changed my mind yet. I feel justified in my decision because hosting a wedding is not just a favor. It's a massive responsibility, and I shouldn't be forced into it because of family pressure. But at the same time, I can't help but feel guilty that I've upset my sister so much. I also worry that my parents will continue to guilt-trip me, and it's making me question whether I overreacted. So, Reddit, AITA, for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after years of her treating me poorly and try to manipulate me into doing things I'm not comfortable with. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process. I, 28F, have always been very close to my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we did everything together from school projects to family vacations. Over the years, though, our relationship has become a little strained because Emily tends to be extremely controlling and particular about events, holidays, and family gatherings. I always tried to accommodate her, but sometimes it felt like nothing I did was enough. Recently, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M, and I was genuinely excited for her. I thought we'd have a lot of fun planning her wedding together, since we had shared similar tastes growing up. I assumed she'd want my input, at least on some parts of the wedding, given how close we've been. I was wrong. From the very start, Emily told me she had everything under control and didn't want extra opinions because she had a specific vision. I tried to respect that, but I was a little hurt. When I offered to help with small things like looking at invitations or suggesting a caterer, she brushed me off or outright ignored my messages. The first real conflict came when she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was honored and said yes, assuming that at some point she'd involve me in planning or dress shopping. But when she told me about the dress, it was already ordered, and she was choosing shoes and accessories with the other bridesmaids behind my back. I mentioned that I would like to be included in decisions related to me, and she said, "I don't want this to be stressful. Just wear the dress, that's all." I tried to let it go, but it stung. Things got worse when she sent me a link to a bridal website asking for advice on decor. I spent hours putting together a mood board, picking color schemes, centerpieces, and small touches I thought she'd like. When I shared it, she replied with a one-word text. No, when I asked why she even asked for my input if she didn't want it, she said she was just being polite. I was frustrated, but kept quiet to avoid drama. Then came the final straw. Emily sent out her wedding guest list for review and asked if I wanted to see it. I opened it and noticed that she had invited some people I considered toxic to our family, people who had caused a lot of drama and hurt in the past, and At the same time, she had excluded my closest friends entirely. When I brought it up, she said, "This is my day, not yours. You don't need to have your friends here. You'll survive." I was furious. I felt like she was not only controlling every detail, but also actively shutting me out from sharing the day in any meaningful way. A week later, Emily invited me to what she called a final planning dinner with her bridesmaids. I went, hoping we could reconcile or at least have a normal conversation. At the dinner, she and the other bridesmaids made multiple comments about how I was too opinionated and couldn't let go of small things. When I tried to explain that I just wanted to feel included, they all laughed and said, "It's your sister's wedding, not yours. Stop overthinking it." I left early, feeling completely unappreciated and unwelcome. After that, I had a long conversation with my parents, who agreed that Emily had been very controlling, but they also warned me that refusing to participate might permanently damage our relationship. I tried to compromise by offering to help with one last thing: the welcome bags for out-of-town guests. Emily refused, saying she had it handled. At this point, I felt like attending the wedding as a bridesmaid or even as a guest would be emotionally draining and hurtful. I sent Emily a message explaining that I could not attend because I didn't feel comfortable being part of a day where I was deliberately excluded and dismissed. I offered to celebrate with her afterward in a more private setting, but she responded by accusing me of being selfish and dramatic, saying that I was throwing away our sisterhood over a dress and a chair placement. Since then, family members have been divided. Some say I should just suck it up and intend to avoid family drama, while others say Emily has been unreasonable and controlling. Mark hasn't really taken sides publicly, but he hasn't reached out either. I haven't heard from Emily directly since I declined the invitation, though I've gotten several messages from my parents telling me to think about the bigger picture and don't let pride ruin your family relationships. I still feel hurt and frustrated. I really wanted to be a part of Emily's wedding, but every attempt to be involved was shut down, and it's clear she doesn't value my input or presence. I feel like attending would just make me feel invisible, and I don't want to subject myself to that. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from the planning and dismissed my feelings? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to give my sister's husband a job at my company, even though he is family. So this is going to be long, but I'll try to explain everything clearly. I, 28F, run a small but successful marketing firm that I started about 5 years ago. My company has grown steadily, and I currently have about 15 employees, most of whom have been with me for at least a few years. I pride myself on being fair and professional with my team, and I try hard to maintain a positive work culture because I know how toxic small workplaces can get if not managed properly. My sister, Lisa, 32F, has been married to her husband, Dave, 34M, for 3 years. Dave has always had a hard time holding a job for more than a few months. He claims it's because he's unappreciated or misunderstood at work, but honestly, for what I've seen and heard, it's more about him being difficult to work with. He's very opinionated, dismissive of authority, and tends to cut corners or ignore rules, which has caused him to get fired from multiple jobs. A couple of months ago, Lisa casually mentioned that Dave was looking for something stable and jokingly asked if there were any openings at my company. I laughed it off at first, but she kept pressing, insisting that since I own the business, I could help him out. I explained politely that we weren't hiring at the moment, and even if we were, I couldn't just hire someone because they're family. I have a small team, and bringing in someone unqualified could upset the balance and even cost me clients. Fast forward a few weeks, Lisa started calling me more persistently. She kept framing it as, "It would mean so much to Dave if you gave him a chance," and, "You know I trust you to make him look good." I tried to stay calm and reminded her multiple times that I need to hire based on skill and fit, not family ties. She then started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I thought you cared about family," and "I just want him to have a chance. You've had all the opportunities. Why can't he?" Last week, things came to a head. Lisa showed up at my office unannounced with Dave in tow. She told me they had driven over because we figured you could interview him on the spot. I was shocked and a little embarrassed in front of my team. I explained firmly that this wasn't appropriate and that we don't do walk-in interviews for family members. Dave rolled his eyes and said, "Well, maybe if you gave me a shot, you'd see I'm not as bad as everyone says." I told him politely but firmly that this was not a decision I could make lightly, and if he wanted to be considered, he needed to go through the same process as everyone else, which meant submitting a resume, references, and going through interviews. Lisa got really upset. She accused me of being selfish and cruel, saying that no one else in the family would understand why I wouldn't just help him out. She implied that I was prioritizing my business over family, and that I was choosing money over people. She left that day in tears, threatening that our relationship was going to suffer if I didn't help Dave. I stuck to my stance. I explained again that my responsibility is to my employees and clients, and hiring someone who might cause disruption or underperform could have serious consequences for everyone. I offered to review his resume and give honest feedback, but I told him that I couldn't just offer him a job out of pity. Since then, my family has been blowing up my phone. Lisa keeps sending messages about how I don't love my own sister and could ruin his life over a little pride. My parents got involved too, saying that I'm being too rigid and that family comes first. Dave hasn't contacted me since, which I guess is for the best, but the tension in the family is escalating. Some of my friends say I'm right to keep my work and family separate, and that hiring him just because he's my brother-in-law would be unfair to my employees who have worked hard and earned their positions. Others say I should try to help family when I can, even if it's inconvenient. I feel caught in a difficult position. I love my sister and want to support her, but I also feel strongly that my company's stability has to come first. I don't want to hire someone unqualified and risk resentment from my team or loss of clients. On the other hand, I can't deny that my refusal is hurting my relationship with my sister and causing a lot of family drama. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister's husband a job at my company, even though he is family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's perfect wedding and causing a huge family rift. I, 26F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, the one who got straight A's, accolades, and constant praise from our parents. I've always been more of a free spirit, not naturally academic, and more focused on art and creative pursuits. Because of this, Emma and I have clashed a lot over the years. She has a very particular view of how things should be done, and I've learned the hard way that anything less than perfect in her eyes is a problem. Emma got engaged 2 years ago to her fiancé, Daniel, 34M, who I actually like a lot. He's kind, patient, and seems genuinely happy. But from the moment they got engaged, Emma became obsessed with the idea of having a flawless wedding. She started a binder, created Pinterest boards, and even emailed the caterer with very specific instructions about flower placement and napkin folding. Normally, I'd say that's fine if it makes her happy, but things started to get extreme. She asked me to make handmade place cards for 150 people, with individual drawings that represented each guest. She asked me to help choreograph the bridal party dance, which I initially agreed to, but she constantly criticized my ideas and even accused me of being lazy when I suggested simplifying things. About 6 months before the wedding, I was diagnosed with a medical condition that requires regular treatment and can leave me very fatigued. I told Emma about it, and I assumed she'd be understanding. Instead, she said, "Well, you need to find a way to be there. Daniel and I have been planning this for years, and I can't imagine you not being part of it." I tried to explain that I might not have the energy to participate in all the events leading up to the wedding, but she brushed me off, saying, "You're my sister. You owe me this." The final straw came about 2 months before the wedding. Emma announced that she had booked a rehearsal dinner at a fancy venue and that she expected all family members to attend, including me. She also said she wanted a girls' night the evening before the wedding, with us doing matching manicures and hair treatments. I explained that with my medical appointments and limited energy, I wouldn't be able to make all these events. Emma flipped. She accused me of being selfish and said, that if I didn't participate fully, I was ruining her once-in-a-lifetime experience. She even sent me a long group text to our parents and siblings, making it clear that she expected me to attend everything or be labeled as the difficult one. At that point, I made a hard decision. I told Emma that I would attend the wedding ceremony itself because I love her and wanted to support her, but I would not be attending the rehearsal dinner, the bridal party events, or any of the pre-wedding activities that required a lot of effort on my part. I explained my health issues again and said I needed to prioritize my well-being. She exploded, called me dramatic and self-centered, and accused me of trying to steal attention away from her wedding. Our parents tried to mediate, but Emma refused to budge, saying that if I didn't attend everything, I was being disrespectful. The situation escalated further when she started sending passive-aggressive messages, like, "I guess I'll just have to take pictures of the fun without you," or "It's fine. Some people just don't care enough." I decided to ignore these messages and focus on attending only what I could manage. The day of the wedding arrived, and I was there for the ceremony. I was dressed nicely, gave a heartfelt toast, and genuinely congratulated Emma and Daniel. Emma, however, was distant. She barely spoke to me and made a point of telling everyone that I didn't participate in the important parts. After the reception, she pulled me aside and said I had ruined the experience and that she couldn't believe I had been so selfish. I reminded her that I had attended the wedding itself, which was the main event, and that I had been honest about my limitations from the start. She said that wasn't enough and that I should have found a way to do more. After that, things in the family got tense. My parents are upset with me, saying I should have just pushed through for Emma. Other siblings are divided. Some think I did the right thing. Some think I should have sacrificed my comfort to avoid family drama. Emma hasn't spoken to me much since the wedding, and it's been almost 3 months. I feel sad and frustrated because I tried to compromise by attending the ceremony and giving a speech, but apparently that was not enough. I keep asking myself if I really am being selfish or if I'm justified in prioritizing my health and boundaries. I love my sister, but the way she has handled this situation makes me feel like nothing I do will ever meet her standards. So, AITA for refusing to participate in all the pre-wedding events and only attending the actual wedding ceremony. Character count, 6,427 if you want. I can also write a version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with even more family drama and extra tension for a highly popular Reddit-style post. Do you want me to expand it to that length? AITA for refusing to let my brother's family stay in my house after they caused major damage last time. So, a little backstory. I, 29F, live in a 2-story townhouse that I purchased about 3 years ago. It's my pride and joy, and I've spent a lot of time and money making it comfortable and aesthetically pleasing. I'm very particular about my space, and I like keeping things organized and clean. I have a brother, Ethan, 32M, who has a wife, Laura, 31F, and 2 kids, 6M and 4F. Ethan and I were close growing up, but as adults, we have very different lifestyles. Ethan's family tends to be loud, messy, and sometimes reckless, which has caused tension in the past. 2 years ago, Ethan and his family asked if they could stay at my place for a week while their house was being renovated. I hesitated, but eventually agreed, thinking it would be fine. Big mistake. During that week, several things went wrong. My couch got ruined because the kids spilled juice and then tried to clean it with paper towels, which only made it worse. One of my decorative glass lamps was knocked over and shattered. Ethan said it was an accident, but the kids were running around. They left crumbs, sticky fingerprints, and toys all over the floor. My hardwood floors were scratched in multiple places because they didn't use slippers inside. They were loud, playing video games late at night, yelling at the kids, and basically making my usually calm home chaotic. I didn't want to be the mean sister, so I didn't make them pay for damages immediately. I let it slide, but inside I was fuming. It took weeks to clean everything and fix the small damages, and I ended up paying a professional cleaner and some minor repairs out of my own pocket. Fast forward to now. Ethan's house is being renovated again, and he asked if his family could stay for a few days at my place while theirs is in disarray. I immediately said no. I explained that after what happened last time, I'm not comfortable having them stay at my home. He was angry, claiming I'm being petty and that a short stay shouldn't be a big deal. He said they would be careful and that they'd make it up to me. I stood my ground. I said that my house is my sanctuary and that I can't risk another week of stress, damage, and chaos. I suggested hotels or Airbnbs as alternatives. Ethan's wife, Laura, then got involved. She called me selfish and accused me of holding grudges. She argued that we're family and I should help them. They even offered to pay me in advance for any inconvenience, which I still declined. Ethan then tried guilt-tripping me, saying that if I really cared about family, I'd let them stay. He brought up past times I had asked for help when I needed it and implied that I was being ungrateful. I reminded him that I never caused damage to his house, nor did I ever act recklessly in his home. He said that's not the point and that I'm making things about myself. I've stayed firm in my decision. I even offered to let them come over for meals or hang out in my backyard, but no overnight stays. The week they plan to come, I also have some friends visiting, and I don't want the added stress of managing two households. Now, some family members are taking sides. My parents understand why I said no. They remember the last visit, but some of my cousins think I'm overreacting. My mom told me, "You're not wrong for wanting boundaries, but maybe you could be a bit more flexible for family." I tried explaining that flexibility doesn't mean ignoring past patterns of destructive behavior. I feel bad because I hate seeing my nieces and nephew disappointed, and I do love my brother. But every time I think about having them in my house again, I feel my stress level spike. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. My house is my home, and I shouldn't have to put myself through a week of anxiety because someone else can't manage their kids. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's family stay in my house after what happened last time. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house and causing a huge family fight. I, 27F, live in a medium-sized city with my boyfriend, Tom, 29M, in a 2-bedroom apartment. We moved in together about a year ago, and things have been going really well. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and Tom works in IT, so our schedules are pretty flexible, and we enjoy our quiet weekends together. My sister, Lisa, 30F, is getting married in 6 months, and while I'm excited for her, the past few weeks have been a nightmare. Lisa has been dating her fiancé, Jake, 32M, for about 3 years. I met Jake once or twice in passing and thought he was fine, if a bit brash. Lisa is very close with our parents, and they are thrilled about the wedding, but there's a history of tension between me and Lisa over personal boundaries. Growing up, Lisa always felt like she had to compete for attention, and now that we're adults, she sometimes tries to involve me in things that feel invasive. The conflict started when Lisa asked if Jake could stay at our apartment for a weekend while he was in town for a business conference. She framed it as, "It would really help us out since we're paying so much for a hotel, and we thought it could be fun to see you." I explained to her that our apartment isn't really set up for guests, and we like having our weekends to ourselves. I suggested a nearby hotel instead, which is only about 10 minutes from us. But she insisted that it would be so much easier for Jake to stay with us, and that I was being difficult. I tried to compromise by saying that we could host them for dinner one evening, or that Jake could stay just for one night if he really needed to, but she kept pushing for the whole weekend. I reminded her that it would be me and Tom hosting someone in our personal space, and I wasn't comfortable with it. I also mentioned that I have important deadlines that weekend, which would make having a guest extremely stressful. Lisa responded by saying, "You always make everything about your comfort. Jake doesn't have anywhere else to stay, and this is family." I told her firmly that it wasn't about being selfish. It was about respecting boundaries. We've hosted family before, but we usually get advance notice and only for short visits. Hosting someone for an entire weekend without my consent felt like an invasion. She accused me of being unreasonable and said I was choosing work over family, which really hurt. Things escalated when she called our parents to complain. My mom called me and said I should be more accommodating because Jake was a guest and it was a family event. I explained my side again, but they seemed more concerned with Lisa's feelings than mine. My dad mentioned that maybe I was making too big a deal about a little inconvenience, which frustrated me because I felt like my personal space and boundaries were being dismissed. The tension didn't end there. Lisa started sending me passive-aggressive texts, saying things like, "I guess I'll just stay at the hotel alone since you're so busy, and you'll regret not helping family when the wedding comes." I tried to ignore it and stick to my decision, but it got worse when she showed up at my door unexpectedly with Jake in tow. They said they were just checking in before the conference and assumed they could spend the night. I told them again that this was not okay and that they needed to leave. Jake looked annoyed but didn't say much, while Lisa started crying and yelling that I was controlling and cruel. Eventually, they left, but Lisa hasn't spoken to me since. Our parents are upset, claiming that I overreacted and should have just been a good sister. Some of my friends think I handled it well by sticking to my boundaries, but others say I could have been more flexible. The thing is, I genuinely don't like the idea of someone staying in my personal space for an entire weekend without my consent, especially someone I barely know and who has already caused tension by expecting me to drop everything for him. I also worry about how Tom feels because it's his home too, and he agreed with me that having a guest under these circumstances would be uncomfortable. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment and sticking to my boundaries, even though it upset my sister and our parents. I understand family is important, but I also feel like personal boundaries matter, and this situation feels like it's testing mine in an unreasonable way. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after she called me ungrateful. I need some perspective on this because my family has gone completely overboard, and I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong here. I, 32M, live in a fairly small city with my fiancé, 30F, and our 2 cats. We're in a decent 2-bedroom apartment that barely fits the 2 of us comfortably. We both work full-time, and our schedules are hectic. My sister, 28F, has 3 kids, age 6, 8, and 10, and she's been asking for a lot of help lately. It all started about 2 months ago when she asked if her kids could come over for a weekend stay, because she had some work obligations that made it hard for her to handle everything. I explained that our apartment is really small, and having 3 kids over would be chaotic. I offered to help in other ways, like watching them for a few hours during the day, but she insisted that a sleepover was fine because they were good kids and that I'm always worried about things being perfect. I said no. A few weeks later, she called me again and asked if the kids could stay for a week because she had to go on a business trip. I explained that a full week would be impossible. She argued that we had enough space, and I was being selfish. I tried to reason with her that it wasn't about space as much as it was about logistics, sleeping arrangements, feeding 3 kids, keeping them entertained, and making sure my cats weren't stressed. She said I was overthinking and that family should help family. I declined again. A week later, she texted me a long message accusing me of being ungrateful for not stepping up and reminded me that she's always helped me when I needed it. I thought this was unfair because she has never asked me for anything of this magnitude before. I've watched her kids occasionally, but never for multiple days at a time, and certainly never in a tiny apartment where my fiancé and I barely have room to move. A few days after that, she showed up at my apartment unannounced with the kids, saying, "You didn't answer my text, so I assumed it was fine." I was furious. I told her she needed to leave immediately because I was not prepared to host 3 children in a space that couldn't accommodate them. She got upset and started yelling that I was heartless and the worst brother ever, and the kids started crying. My fiancé backed me up, saying it was unreasonable to expect us to host them without notice, and she eventually left, still ranting about how selfish I am. Since then, she has been sending me passive-aggressive messages, tagging me in social media posts about family bonding, and lecturing me about my priorities. She also guilt-tripped our parents, saying I refuse to help and that she is overworked. My parents seem caught in the middle and have started asking me if I really don't care about my nieces and nephews, which makes me feel even worse because I do care. I just don't think I should be forced into situations that are overwhelming and stressful for me. The thing is, I do help her in other ways. I drop the kids off at school occasionally when I can, buy groceries for them sometimes, and take them out for an hour or 2 so she can run errands. But full overnight stays for multiple days? That's just not something I can handle given my living situation and work schedule. My fiancé and I have talked about it extensively, and we both feel like saying yes would be setting a precedent that could easily spiral out of control. Now my sister is refusing to speak to me except through our parents, who keep trying to mediate. She's called me selfish repeatedly and said I don't love family. I keep trying to explain that my love isn't conditional on my willingness to host her kids, but she doesn't seem to understand that sometimes saying no is an act of care too, both for her kids and for the people they're staying with. I'm conflicted because part of me feels guilty. I know she's struggling with work and managing 3 kids, but at the same time, I've been consistently reasonable in what I'm willing to do. I don't feel like I'm shirking responsibilities, yet my sister and parents make it feel like I'm failing as a brother. So, AITA here, am I wrong for refusing to let her kids stay with us, even when she insists it's just for a few days and that it won't be a problem? I feel like I'm being punished for having boundaries, but I also don't want to cause a permanent rift in my family. I really want to handle this maturely without alienating my sister or the kids, but I also need to maintain my own sanity and household rules. Character count: 6,528 if you want. I can also draft a second version with even more twists and family drama, like escalating arguments with the parents and a surprise twist from the kids themselves. That version could hit the top AITA story vibe even more. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her dog to my wedding after she threatened to skip it. I, 28F, have always been really close with my younger sister, Emma, 24F. We grew up in a very small family, just the 2 of us and our parents, and we've always leaned on each other a lot. Emma has always been a bit dramatic, but I've generally been understanding because, well, she's my sister. She's always been obsessed with her dog, a miniature dachshund named Baxter, and I know she loves him more than almost anything else in her life. That's important background for this story. I got engaged to my fiancé, Mark 30M, about a year ago, and we've been planning our wedding ever since. From the beginning, I made it very clear that we wanted a fairly traditional wedding, an indoor ceremony at a venue with a reception afterward. We've been saving up for this for a long time, and both of our families have been excited about it. We want everyone to have a good time, but we also want the day to be smooth and manageable. That said, I wasn't against dogs in general, but we had a lot of logistics to think about: venue rules, allergies, and keeping the day structured. I just didn't imagine having pets in a mix. About 6 months into the planning, Emma brought up the idea of having Baxter at the wedding. At first, I laughed it off, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She sent me a whole list of reasons why Baxter should be there. He's family, he's a symbol of love, and he deserves to witness this milestone too. I tried to explain politely that our venue doesn't allow pets inside, that even if we made exceptions, it could be chaotic and some guests are allergic. I offered to have professional photos of her and Baxter beforehand, or even a small meet and greet with him before the ceremony, but I thought that would satisfy her. She didn't think it was enough. Over the next few weeks, she kept pushing, alternating between guilt-tripping and outright threats. She said she wouldn't attend the wedding if Baxter couldn't come. She also suggested she might leave him in the car during the ceremony, which I found horrifying because it's December and freezing where we live. I tried to stay calm and reiterate the reasons why it wasn't feasible, but she got more and more aggressive. She started calling me selfish and unreasonable, and she even posted on social media about how weddings should be inclusive of all family members, even furry ones. I ignored the posts, but it was starting to make me anxious and worried that this would blow up in front of other guests. A few weeks later, Emma showed up at my apartment unannounced with Baxter in tow. She brought a small outfit for him, clearly intending to take photos, and she demanded that I let him be part of the wedding. I told her firmly that she could not bring him, that the venue would not allow it, and that this conversation was over. She started crying, saying she just wanted to be included and that I was choosing my fiancé over my family. He stayed firm. I finally said something along the lines of, "I love you, but Baxter is not coming to the wedding. If you can't accept that, maybe you need to reconsider attending." She left in a huff, slamming my door, and I didn't hear from her for a week. Fast forward to the wedding. A week before the ceremony, Emma called and demanded a last-minute compromise. She suggested that Baxter could be at the outdoor reception area, in a playpen, away from the ceremony. I told her that wasn't possible, The venue had strict rules, insurance issues, and the staff would not be able to supervise a dog. She freaked out and accused me of breaking our sister bond and making everything about Mark. She said she wouldn't come unless Baxter was allowed. At that point, I told her flatly that if she refused to come, that was her choice, but the rules would not change for anyone. We hung up, and I was upset, but I stood my ground. On the day of the wedding, I was surprised to see Emma show up, but without Baxter. She looked visibly upset, gave me a forced hug, and then spent most of the evening sulking at the table with our parents trying to mediate. She made a few snide comments about how dogs are better than husbands anyway, in front of other guests, which embarrassed me. Aside from that, the wedding went smoothly, and Mark and I had an amazing day. Afterward, I got several messages from mutual friends and even some family, asking if I had been too harsh with Emma. Some said I should have found a way to include Baxter, while others said she should have respected my wishes. Emma hasn't spoken to me much since the wedding, and I know she's angry. Our parents are upset that we're not on speaking terms, and I feel guilty that my sister is so hurt. But at the same time, I feel like I did the right thing. I had boundaries, and she crossed them repeatedly, even threatening to sabotage my wedding. I can't help but feel that if I had given in, it would have caused chaos for everyone else and for me and Mark on our big day. So, Reddit, AITA here. Did I go too far by refusing to let Emma bring her dog? Or was she being unreasonable by making my wedding about Baxter? Character count, 6789 if you want. I can also create 2 more alternative versions in the same style that are slightly different, but equally long. They could focus on a cousin or friend instead of sister, which tends to do very well on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's friend move in after he lost his apartment? This is going to be a bit long, so I'll try to explain everything clearly. I, 28M, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I've been renting it for about 5 years, and it's small but cozy. My younger brother, Alex, 24M, lives about 15 minutes away. He's always been the kind of person who jumps into things without thinking, which is part of why I'm in this situation. A few weeks ago, Alex called me panicked because his roommate had kicked him out over some unpaid bills. Apparently, Alex's roommate found out he had been borrowing money from multiple people and not paying anyone back, and decided he didn't want to deal with him anymore. I was sympathetic, of course, because I know how stressful it can be to suddenly lose housing, so I offered him my couch for a couple of nights until he figured something out. Here's where things started going sideways. Alex called me a few days later and said he had a friend named Tyler who had nowhere to stay either, and he wanted to bring him along. I hesitated because my apartment isn't very big, but Alex promised it would only be for a week or so, and that Tyler was completely harmless. I reluctantly agreed, thinking I was helping both of them. Tyler arrived the next day, and I immediately noticed some red flags. He didn't have any belongings with him except a backpack, and he kept talking about how he didn't really work and lived off people who were nice enough to help. He was friendly enough at first, but it quickly became obvious that he expected me to be accommodating without really considering my space or rules. Within 2 days, Tyler had basically made himself at home. He was eating my food without asking, leaving dirty dishes everywhere, and taking long showers. While I politely asked him to at least clean up after himself, he got defensive and said, "Well, you're letting me stay here, so I don't owe you anything." I was stunned and immediately told Alex that this wasn't okay, and that Tyler needed to start following basic house rules. Alex said, "Come on, he's just trying to get by. Can't you cut him some slack?" I explained that it wasn't about being harsh, it was about respect. Over the next week, Tyler continued to push boundaries. He borrowed money from me without asking, said he would pay me back eventually, and then started inviting other people over without telling me. My apartment, which I usually keep neat and quiet, became chaotic. I tried talking to Alex again, asking him to intervene since it was his friend, but Alex shrugged and said he didn't want to start a fight with Tyler. The breaking point came last weekend. I had a few friends over for a small game night, and Tyler invited 4 of his friends without checking with me. They made a mess, drank all the soda, and left trash everywhere. I snapped and told Tyler he had to leave immediately. Alex got extremely angry at me, saying I was being unreasonable and that I was kicking him out into the street. Tyler tried to guilt trip me, saying he had nowhere else to go and that Alex had vouched for him. I explained calmly, though probably not as calmly as I should have, that I was happy to help Alex temporarily, but I never agreed to house a stranger long-term, especially someone who was disrespecting my home. Alex accused me of being selfish and not being a good brother, and Tyler started crying and begging me to reconsider. I told them both that my apartment is not a shelter, and if they can't respect my space, they can't stay. Alex left angrily, texting me later that night saying I had ruined everything and that I was ungrateful for the help he thought I was giving Tyler. I haven't talked to him much since then, and Tyler left too, though he kept calling me a jerk on social media. Some friends think I handled it poorly because I didn't try harder to help a friend in need, while others say I have every right to set boundaries in my own home. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I hate seeing someone struggle and not have a place to stay. On the other hand, Tyler was completely disrespectful, and Alex refused to step up and manage his friend. I feel like I was forced into a situation that wasn't mine to manage. So, AITA for refusing to let Tyler stay and enforcing boundaries in my own apartment? AITA for refusing to give my younger brother a large sum of money after he spent years taking advantage of me? I, 28M, have always been close with my younger brother, Ryan, 24M, but our relationship has been complicated. Growing up, I was the responsible one, and Ryan was more of a free spirit. Our parents divorced when I was 16 and he was 12, and after that, I felt a kind of responsibility to look out for him. I helped him with schoolwork, covered some of his expenses when our parents couldn't, and generally tried to make sure he had what he needed. Once I got my first full-time job after college, things started to get more complicated. Ryan, meanwhile, bounced around different jobs and never really seemed to commit to anything. Over the years, he would occasionally ask for money, and I usually gave it because I felt guilty or responsible. It started small, covering his rent for a month, helping with car repairs, things like that. At first, it didn't bother me, but over time, I noticed a pattern. Every time I helped him, he never tried to improve his situation. Instead, he acted like it was normal for me to bail him out. He would buy expensive gadgets, go on trips, or spend money on things he didn't need, then come to me for help when bills were due. I didn't want to say no, but honestly, it was exhausting and I started feeling resentful. 2 years ago, I finally decided to set boundaries. I told Ryan I couldn't cover his rent anymore, that I would only help in emergencies, and that he needed to start being more responsible. He agreed at first, but immediately started trying to manipulate the situation. He would text me constantly about how hard things were, guilt me by reminding me of all I had done for him, and occasionally guilt trip our parents too. Despite my boundaries, I still helped occasionally, but I became very clear that I wasn't his safety net anymore. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, Ryan called me out of nowhere, sounding desperate. He had apparently gotten himself into serious financial trouble after maxing out credit cards and failing to pay some overdue bills. He told me he needed $15,000 immediately or he would lose his apartment, his car, and his life would basically fall apart. I was shocked. I told him I couldn't give him that kind of money. It wasn't just the amount. It was that he had consistently made poor choices and expected me to fix them. I offered to help him make a plan, look for better paying work, or even lend him a smaller, manageable sum that he could realistically pay back. But he refused all of that. He screamed at me over the phone, calling me selfish, cold, and saying that I was abandoning him. He also texted our parents, saying I was refusing to help him in his time of need. Our parents were furious with me. They think I should just help my brother like I always have, and that I'm being unnecessarily harsh. They say I'm letting him fail, and that family sticks together no matter what. I tried to explain that I've been enabling him for years, and that continuing to bail him out is not helping him grow or learn responsibility. They said I was being cruel and that Ryan had a right to my help. Since then, Ryan has not spoken to me, and my parents have been passive-aggressively reminding me that I'm hurting family bonds. I feel incredibly guilty because he is my brother, and I do love him, but at the same time, I feel like I have to stand my ground. If I give him $15,000 now, I feel like it will reinforce a lifetime of dependence and manipulation. I'm also worried that even if I lend it to him, he won't pay me back and it will ruin my finances. Some friends have said I'm doing the right thing by refusing, but others say I'm being heartless. I feel torn because part of me wants to help him, but another part is terrified of enabling him and damaging my own future. I want my brother to learn responsibility, but I also don't want to be the bad guy in the family. I've tried to set clear boundaries, and now it seems like everyone thinks I'm wrong for sticking to them. So Reddit, am I really the asshole for refusing to give my brother $15,000 after years of him taking advantage of me? Character count, 6,226 if you want. I can draft another one even longer, closer to the 7,000 character limit, with more twists, family drama, and moral ambiguity to really match the most viral AITA stories. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.